start. So this webinar is about love and fear. And I approached Heidi a few weeks ago and said, wow, we're going to do something about love and fear because it's so amazing. And it's such a challenge for all my clients. Yeah. So I normally work as a therapist, and I always get these clients and they say, finally, I fall in love. And it's like, it's just so yummy. And then they get so frustrated when the fear is showing up. The fear of losing someone, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of just everything, like not being wanted, that the other person doesn't love us. And it's a little bit tricky with this emotion. So we're going to go through it all today, because you can't only feel the positive emotions. We also have to see and feel the negative emotions, because for me, emotions is mostly a compass of what's going on in my life. So today the agenda is we're going to present ourselves a little bit, and we're going to do a lot of theory about emotions, the brain, and attachment. We're going to do a few exercises, and in the end, we're going to try to sum it all up into a toolbox for you. And we're going to record the first hour, and then we're open for questions. So who am I? Yeah, I've done more study than most people I know. I have both a master in science and then endless studies in psychology. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm educated in the US in AEDP. This is attachment and affect focused therapy. I've been specializing in disorganized attachment and dissociation, and I love it. I've done numerous years of personal development, and I offer and I also live fully from my company individual therapy and retreats in Ireland and weekend courses in Stockholm, etc. I have a YouTube channel, and you can book a free consultation with me. Now over to Heidi. Can you present yourself, Heidi?
Sorry, so I'm Heidi. I'm a mom and a partner. I've also been working for bunches of years in helping people to see themselves with more clarity and more compassion, using the modality of mindfulness that many of us nowadays know. I was one of the first in Sweden to be teaching this. And it's been unbelievably beneficial in both my private life, in the relationships that I have, but also in my work life. I've been working at lots of companies with self-leadership of different kinds, and also as a psychotherapist. So I'm really excited to get to share this with you today.
Thank you. And we're going to start with an exercise that we developed for doing online. So during COVID, we did this exercise on our online classes, and one woman who was attending the webinar actually texted me or sent me an email a few weeks ago and told me that she put this exercise on her arm. So what you see here on her arm is the same as I'm written here on the slide. Yes. So we're going to do this together. So it's like a short meditation, just to remember to ourselves and to each other what we are or all love. From the beginning, our core essence is love. But sometimes we tend to forget that. So when we are not recording, we can do this live, but today we're not going to do it with the group online because it's like we don't want to do that. So you can just follow and do the hand movements together with me. So first, we're going to point out to everyone else, like you and the group in the room here, and say, you are love. And just feel that, like you really feel like you are love. And then we back in and say, I am love. And then we open and feel like the group here tonight, we are love. So we're going to continue with, you are love, I am love, and we are love. And you could put your mics on and just say this together with me. You are love, I am love, we are love. You are love, I
am love.
We
are love.
love. You are
love.
I
am love.
We are love.
love.
And once more, just feel into it like you're really sending like out. You are love.
Love.
I
am love.
We
are love.
Just sit a moment and feel all this love we have put into circulation now, and just feel that you really are love. In your deepest core essence, we are all love. So. Right. Just, so I'm gonna, if everyone turns their cameras off, I'm gonna hide non-video participants so you're not on the screen. So Stella, if you can take your, yeah, good. Now I'm gonna get it right. So. Yes. So here we are. So we're going to go over to the love and the fear. So when we meet someone special, we really start to feel this jamminess, the emotions. And here I'm meeting Heidi's cat, Zoe. But I've also in real life met someone really special very recently. So when we start feeling this love, the lust starts to come. Maybe we start to become intimate. We feel the curiosity, we feel the excitement, we feel the vulnerability, and bang, fear shows up. So there is like the natural process, and this is how it should be. But I will leave over to Heidi now to talk about the brain and everything, all these kind of neuroscience things.
So we have something called the love cocktail. I'm actually really curious, and you guys can put this in the chat. How many of you have fallen in love before and been totally like crazy? Like it just totally blew your mind. You don't, and it doesn't actually matter how long it actually lasted. I'm curious just to see. So put it in the chat for me. I won't read it out right now, but that experience, there's this really great little scene in Bambi. If you guys have seen the film Bambi, where he like totally falls in love with another baby deer, and the little skunks or the little rabbits are like, what is wrong with him? And the skunk says he's Twitter-pated. So Twitter-pated, or infatuation, is one of the things that we can feel. And that always precurses a deeper, longer relationship. So coming back to this love cocktail, again, has anybody ever felt this, that you just get like crazy? Like, Martina, yes. I know I absolutely did. It sounds really bad, but I think the first year of my relationship with my husband, I don't know if we actually saw the outside like at all. And if we did see the outside, we didn't see the outside. So the sex hormones, what's interesting for us around this is understanding that this is not just an emotional thing, it's a physiological thing, that it actually affects our physiology because we're a part of the animal kingdom species, and this is part of our survival kit. So some of the primary hormones, or the primary hormones, of course, are the sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen. But then we come into dopamine and oxytocin. And I'll be speaking about these a little bit more later also, but just to kind of give you a sense of what it looks like, dopamine is like a surge that shows up in the body the same way that cocaine shows up in the body. Cocaine actually maintains dopamine's signaling longer than normal, like a normal people, and it creates a prolonged high. And so technically we can say that when we're attracted to somebody, it's kind of like we're addicted to them, and like literally addicted to them, because this is like coursing through our bodies. We also know that high levels of dopamine and a related hormone that's called norepinephrine, or noradrenaline in Swedish, is released during acts of sex or during attachment. And that's sometimes why we can feel so high and euphoric sensations that show up. And it actually can lead to insomnia. Anybody else recognize that? It's like we don't want to sleep, right? And if we look at it from a survival mechanism, I mean, this is a great way to get two people to attach, right, on this like high and excitement and joy, dopamine being our pleasure center, our reward center, to keep us together long enough so that we can get impregnated. You know, I mean, this is how we're all here. Now, if you add in the oxytocin, which is also often commonly called the bonding hormone, oxytocin makes us want to be with other person, and it feels safe and comfortable, and we just can't get enough of them. Again, really, really helpful if we're going to get pregnant, to get the other person to stick around. Like in men, oxytocin actually raises to get them to want to be able to stay with the person they're with. And then for women, oxytocin is huge when you're nursing, to be able to take care of the child. But also in this like love cocktail, it shows up as this way of connecting with each other. Now, why is this sometimes interesting for us? Well, on the positive side, the love cocktail feels unbelievably amazing. On the negative side, when we have been in a relationship falls apart, it doesn't end up the way we want, heartbreak actually can fall under this, like under social pain. And it's an activation of pain in response to the loss or threat to our social connection. And it's unbelievably painful. And we know that it shows up in the brain in the same place, like literal pain as physical pain. So that's how strong these hormones are when we aren't being able, when it's falling apart, when a relationship is not working out the way we want. It can be actually disastrous for when a relationship falls apart. I don't know how many people have experienced that because of these strong emotional triggers that, because of the dopamine, because of the oxytocin. So again, what's helpful for us is to have we can't affect what we can't see, to have a little bit of reflection on understanding, okay, what's going on in me right now? I've got the love cocktail going on. In any situation around, this coming together, when fear shows up, it's the love cocktail, right? These things are feeding into wanting to make sure that we've made a good choice, not wanting to attach to someone and maybe get pregnant, or if you're with, the man, in a situation that maybe is not healthy. So again, these are all unconscious. It's a physiological things. And so, taking it, it's really important not to take it personal. It's totally not personal. It's human. And when we can see it as human, we can be more compassionate towards ourselves and towards others that are stuck in the love cocktail. It'll be fun to see what kind of questions you guys come up around this. So next slide. Thank you. So I want to just mention the fight, flight, or freeze. So in naming that, when things go really well, we're using these hormones to attach, right? But when things, even if they're going well, things can come up for us that absolutely immediately trigger this really old part of our brain called the amygdala into seeing is this, if this is not a safe situation. And what it can do almost automatically is that we can go into fighting or running away or freezing out of fear. So in relationships, actions that aren't even actually threatening can set off our fight, flight, or freeze impulses, leading us to overreact to way too much. It's super uncomfortable, and perhaps leading to us making poor choices. Anybody else ever do that in their relationship? Can you guys put in the chat so I know I'm not alone on this? I mean, this happens to me all the time. I can give so many examples around it with me and my husband. Actually, I can give a really, really quick example. This morning, it's kind of embarrassing, so, take it with a grain of salt. But I'm going to the US, he has to stay with his kids. And I was having like a certain moment of, oh, it would just be so nice to have you come along. And I was just feeling so safe and comfy. We were cuddling. And then there's a little bit of fear. I'm going to see my family. I've got my kids, and it can be pretty intense. And so I was like, oh, I wish you could come. And immediately he's like, yeah, well, I can't come without my kids, and his kids can't come. And I got triggered like that. So I went from being in this like lovey-dovey, emotional oxytocins flowing, a little dopamine, right smack into the fight. First, I'm like pissed off, right? In reactivity, and then into flight. And then I shut down, freeze. So super simple, but super common kind of experience. And we've been together for 9 years. So this has been an established but it's still, these are the ways the brain works. And we need to remember not to take it so personally, but we need to be able to see it. And I'm going to give you a really clear tool for seeing this later, for working on that. That can be really, really helpful for all of us. And it's the one that I use. And I'll come back to this situation and tell you what I did with it.
So I just want to also add, because this is what we talk about. It's like I have clients and said, oh, everything is going fine until they come into a relationship, because then all our old attachment traumas is showing up. So when we start becoming intimate and really attached to someone, all our old stuff is coming up, and it's really painful that it is like that. But that's also an opportunity to heal what has been broken. So we go through the next.
Just kind of a really quick overview of the 4 types of love, because so that we're being specific, right? We're talking about love and we're talking about fear. And what we're actually talking about mostly in this class tonight is eros. So the Greeks have these 4 different types that they talk about. Eros is like the love that we're just erotic and sexually passionate, and we just can't think, we're so attracted to the other person. It's addicting, which also can be a little bit messy. And that's why it's so important to understand that there's a love cocktail going on. Oh, and I forgot to mention with the love cocktail, with like new love or new infatuation, it can last anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half. So it can be a longer period of time while we're in this like hormonal cocktail of going on. So that would be eros. And then agape is the love that they use to describe love of the world, love of mankind, love of each other. Storage would be the love that you have between friends. Between like parents and a child. That is a very specific kind of love, right? We still call it love, but it is very different from eros and very different from agape. And then we have philia, which is the love of friends. And it's actually the other love that we're talking about today, or naming. It can be the love between lovers that have been together for a very long time. It builds up over time. Maybe you're not quite as hot and bothered as you were because your hormone cocktail has settled down a little bit. But it also can be called like brotherly love. So we're really focusing on the first and the third to a certain degree today, just to kind of give this overview. And it's also going to be really helpful in understanding our relationships when we start feeling into a little bit, what stage am I in? Where am I in this right now? So next slide, please. I love this. We accept the love we think we deserve. So we live in a culture that seems to, advocate independence, self-sufficiency, and basically scorn any kind of like intimacy or closeness or dependency, right? We're not supposed to have that, but the studies show that most people are only as needy as their unmet needs. And that's also what we're going to get into today. So when their emotional needs are met, preferably early in the relationship and early in their life, then they're going to turn their attention outward, kind of like a child. It's like a 2-year-old will come in, it wants to be comforted, and then it goes back out into the world and becomes more independent and daring. And that's the positive, one of the positive. There's many aspects of positive, but of real love is that we feel bigger. We feel like we can go out there and conquer things that maybe we didn't feel like we could do before. So dependency isn't a choice or preference. It's a fact. We need each other. We're hardwired for connection. And that's why, again, we have the hormone cocktail, the love cocktail. One more thing I think is really cool is that in a really good relationship, we actually regulate each other's blood pressure, our heart rates, our breathing, and the levels of hormones in our blood.
Yeah. And that's something we also do in therapy. That's like part of therapy is this co-regulation.
Yeah.
Like you're being helped to regulate. Thank you, Heidi. And I'm coming from, I changed the order a little bit. So we're going to do an exercise right now. So just take a big breath. For me, coming from an affect-focused therapy perspective, emotions is like the core information of living. And emotions are not dangerous. They are just, for me, it's the compass, like how I want to live and what's going on in my life. So when we shut down or not want to feel emotions, we're kind of losing the compass. So this exercise is one of my favorites. And we're just going to scan and see which emotions do you feel connected to a certain person. So you can all think about a person you have in your life. It doesn't have to be a loved one. It could be a child, a parent, or a friend, or anyone if you're not in a relationship. So you're going to think about a person, and now we're going to start scanning. So in your body, when you're thinking about this person, can you sense any anger towards this person? And anger can feel like you closing your fists, or you're getting a bit like energy upwards. Go over to joy. You think about this person and just feel into yourself. Do you feel any joy connected to this person? Yeah, and I feel loads of joy connected to this person. Go over to curiosity. Still thinking about the same person. And yeah, curiosity is like a bubbliness. It's like a little bit wanting to come closer. So yeah, there is a lot of curiosity. And then we go to fear. And fear feels like the body is like contracting. So just say, if you in your body feel any fear connected to this person. Yeah, I feel fear. Yeah. Of course, if you feel that you will find someone else. And then we go over and see if we feel any love towards this person. And now we talk about eros and love. We're gonna, we're gonna just feel like, do we feel any love? And I'm here, I'm like just feeling the love, like your heart is opening towards this person. So just notice if you feel love to this person you're thinking about. And we go to the next one. Do you feel any lust or sexual energy towards this person? And this can feel in your genitals. It's going to be a bit tingling or a bit yummy. So just sense into yourself if you feel any lust or sexual energy towards this person. And the emotions with the capital letters is like kind of emotions for the self or for the relationship. So it's like more a complex emotion. So we just feel if you feel like connected, intimacy with this person. And that can feel like a pull forwards to that person in your body. So you sense that. And we're going to see if we can feel some shame, like for anything we've done toward this person that we're not really happy about. And yeah, I can feel some shame as well. Guilt? No, not really. But guilt and shame is kind of similar. And then we go to this vulnerability. And just see, vulnerability is like you feel like your heart is open and you're really showing yourself. It's like an openness. So just see if you can sense any vulnerability in your body towards this person. Then we go to disgust, and that is something it's a very interesting emotion, and I can talk loads about that, but I'm not going to do it. So disgust is feeling like kind of äckel, is like a little bit of So it could be something the person evokes. So see if you can feel any disgust towards this person. And now we're going to feel if we feel any excitement, and sexual excitement or excitement. They can be mixed or together. So excitement is that you feel this bubbliness, this high energy, the dopamine, and all these kind of things in the like this yummy field we are creating together. So just see if you towards this person you're thinking about can feel excitement. And yeah, there is loads of excitement here. But I can guess, like some of you have difficulties feeling some of these emotions. And I'm going to now go into the emotional therapy, like the emotional triangle that's developed by David Malan, and also very much used in ISTDP. And this is like, you can more see it as a map. So it's not like you don't have to understand like the total mechanism, but it's interesting to see it as a map. So all the time in your life, you can be in either of these 4 places. You can be in the core emotions, plus the emotions we also talked about, the self-emotions and other emotions. And it's amazing if you are able to feel all emotions and just feel them to completion and be able to stay with them, hold them, and just get all the information from them. But a lot of us have difficulties. So many clients I meet are in kind of religious communities, or they growing up in family that thinks that sex is bad. So if they feel sexual excitement, they go straight to the other corner, the upper right corner here, and feel anxiety, shame, or guilt, because they haven't been allowed to feel sexual excitement. And to be in anxiety, shame, and guilt is just so like yucky for us. So then our dear old defenses kick in. And defenses is anything we do to avoid emotions. It could be shutting off, going on social media, drinking, just dismissing things, or just whatever you do not to feel. So our goal here is to help you understand where in the triangle are you right now, or where in the triangle are you when you are meeting with a new partner or your old partner or someone. Because just recently with my new partner, and this is like a bit, I feel a little bit small when I'm telling you, but I will tell you anyway. Like a few weeks ago, we discussed something about the weekend, and he didn't answer me like, are we meeting this weekend or not? So I got so much fear, or I was like, oh, what is happening right now? Is he leaving, or doesn't want to see me, or so? So I went up to the anxiety, and then I went to the defenses and dissociated. I felt like, wow, I just lost it. I don't know how many of you are dissociating. I am, and I've done it for a long time. But for me, it's just information. Oh, wow, something is so strong now that I choose to dissociate. And so then I understand I'm dissociating, and then I can come back and hold the fear. I was a bit fearful that we wasn't going to meet this weekend. And what do I do then to handle the fear? Mostly I call my friend, I call Heidi or someone, and talk about, wow, I got so triggered right now, and I need like your support, and can we talk it through? And I can do it myself as well, but it's like very nice to do an exercise or talk to a friend and see what's going on inside me. And for me, I'm so very happy. Most of my friends are also therapists. So it's like really a blessing. Yes. So also when we feel and maybe have sex and feel or this love, we can also come and feel this like really open-hearted state, like the real bliss, when we are like, we feel this deep connection to the other, to the world, to ourselves, and it just becomes very still. And we call it open-hearted state. It was like, it's just so amazing to be there. Everything is just great. But it's not always we are able to go there. So I'm going to talk about two halves that I see here. And that is like more an explanation of the previous slides as well. So the love and the lust starts showing up. Automatically, the fear of losing the loved one, not being good enough, or being abandoned would also come up. And the healthy part is to be able, this on the right side here, to feel and hold the love, the lust, and the fear. It's just emotions. And we can feel and hold this. We are like coming into, we can stay connected. We can stay together with the other person, and we can feel all this without going elsewhere. We can also feel the lust and have sexual interaction without dissociating or anything else, because that is like one of the most common places of dissociating is in the sexual act. So the healthy part, we hold the emotion, and when we just open your heart, and we can just feel this deep, deep connection and vulnerable space with our partner. But it's not always we are on that healthy path. Sometimes we are on the dysfunctional path, and then we start to feel the love and the lust and the yummy emotions, and then the fear comes. And if we can't hold and feel these emotions, we go into the more kind of tricky path or dysfunctional path, the path we not want to go to, and where anxiety shows up, shame shows up, and fear of not being good shows up. And these inhibitory emotions, what they do is they kind of put a lid on the yummy emotions. So you feel this like love and lust starts to rise in you, and you want to like go towards the other person. But what's happened with these inhibitory emotions is that it's like pulling it's all down. You don't feel anything. And then the defenses check in as well. It's like you don't feel like you shut down, you dissociate, you start taking drugs, you use distractions, you're minimizing the love, or you start dwelling, oh, he's not good enough, and blah, 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 you're into your head. And then all the lovely emotions are gone, and that's so boring. So then we're like, oh, he's probably not good enough, so I'm going to break it up. And so that is what normally happens. And we're going to do a few more exercises about how to be able to work this through. And yes. And if you want to do this live, I have a retreat in Öland in the middle of June. And there is like 9 keys to more love. So we are in my summer house, and we're going to swim, and we're going to do enormous amounts of exercises and sharing and group therapy and so on. And there is still places. Do you want to say something, Heidi? Because I have a little bit more slides here. Should we just continue? Yeah, so I continue. So every client I meet, they just want to fall in love. But they fall in love, and then all the problems start. So here are a few things I work with my clients when they are triggered in relationships. We look at the attachment styles. So different attachment styles bring up different kind of triggers and strategies. And this is like a whole webinar in itself. And I did it a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to go into this. But one thing I always work with my clients is like to look at the worst case scenario. And because the fear is showing up, and there's like, oh, I can't handle it. And then they start using all the defenses and anxiety. And instead, I invite them to feel the fear, but also to separate the fear from when they were little and the parents, they like the fear of losing the parent, they could die. But to compare it with the fear, what is actually happening if I'm losing the partner I have now? Yeah, it's really painful and hurtful, but nothing is like, I'm not dying, even though it feels like that. So we have to compare how it was for a child that is like, need the parents to survive. To us right now, we're adults and we can survive, and we know when we have done it with numerous partners, we have had these hard crashes. We also a lot of times look at the core wounds of separation of trauma. And then I see, like for me, example, I was an incubator for a few weeks when I was born. So I have a longing to be symbiotic. I want to really nest, like going really melt together with the other person. And that is not healthy in an adult relationship, but I can see that tendency, and I work through that tendency, so wanting to be melting together. We can also become codependent and like lose ourselves and just focus on the other partner. And for us with disorganized attachment, the one normal thing is like we feel this kind of, we don't know where we're going. We want to approach, but at the same time, we are so scared that we want to avoid the person at the same time. And this is like an old trauma pattern. It's nothing actually to do with the person. And I've done this a lot as well. because a lot of time we have shame for being sexual, and that is also like we just have to start owning our lust and our sexuality, and just feel like maybe we want to have this person, we really want to grab them, we want to like seduce them and feel this lust. It's just amazing. It's like life force energy. And the last part that we talk about is like to expand the capacity to feel all emotions. And anxiety and defenses are emotions that are blocked, that we're not able to access, or that they are mixed. So when we feel both love and fear of the same person for the same person, like fear of losing them and love for them, that can end up as anxiety, because it's like it's mixed emotions, like going in different directions. And if you want to work, this is like, I also want to say, like, we also need to work with our own wounds. It's like not your partner's chore to give you all this unconditional love. There is something we have to do by yourself. And on all my retreats and stuff, I do exercises to make you receive this unconditional love. And you can also do it on YouTube later. And if you want to come to a retreat to work with your life force energy, I do that in August on Öland. And it's in Swedish, and you're going to get all my favorite tools for expanding your life force energy. And now I'm over to Heidi. Thank you so much.
So I'd like to share with you one of the tools that I have found to be really, really helpful in whatever phase of love one is in. And it's called Name It to Tame It. Started by Rick Hansen, one of my favorite teachers. So just to understand the brain a little bit again, we have our left hemisphere. It's where our logic, our language is. We really want to have access to both parts of our brain. So understanding this can be really helpful. So we have our logic part, and then we have our right brain hemisphere, which is emotion, art, things like that. So on the right part of the brain, you're going to have words to describe what you're experiencing. I feel anger. And on the left part, you're going to be feeling, right? So we're using language to talk about feelings, using our left brain, the left brain's logic, to be able to help it regulate the right brain emotion. So we're really trying to use both parts of our brain. Now, to make this a little bit more like down to earth, I can come back to the experience that I was talking about earlier. So we were having this nice little time, my husband and I, and like I said, I had shared, because I was feeling so close to him, I was just like, oh, I wish you could come. And he's like, yeah, I can't come without the kids. And like I said, I got really triggered by that. And later, as give myself a little bit of time, I used this tool calling Name It to Tame It. I started to really feel into, well, what's really going on underneath? Like, what is the emotion that I'm experiencing? And what I realized for myself was that it created fear in me. Like him going directly to his children created a fear in me, because of what I was longing for was I wanted to be comforted, and I was feeling vulnerable. And that is not what I asked him for, but that's what I was longing for. And so when the fear got triggered in me, I'm not important, his kids are more important than I am, he's not actually the proper information, right? I was just kind of, oh, it feels so comfy, I want you to come with me. So in realizing this, I can start to name it for myself. Okay, fear, I feel fear. And I felt anger. Well, actually, first I felt anger. Okay, I feel anger. Noticing anger showing up. I feel anger. Where does it feel in my body? And then after the anger came fear. Oh, I'm not important, right? Okay, I'm naming it again. Wow, Heidi, you're not feeling important. Interesting. And then it came to, well, what is it I really wanted? I really wanted to be comforted. That's what it was really about. So I use this tool both in therapy with people, but also in groups, big groups in corporations, because it's actually quite easy to use. It might look a little bit confusing, but I'd like to ask you right now to sit for just a moment and think about something, preferably in a relationship, that you had during today or yesterday. So just close your eyes for one moment and just reflect back. And it doesn't have to be the perfect situation. So, if you're a perfectionist, I have to find the right one. Don't worry about it. It could be anything. I mean, it doesn't even have to be relationships, but it's more helpful right now. And start to notice what you felt. So painting up the picture for yourself. Like I said, for myself, it started to feel like anger first, or fear, anger, and then fear. So start to feel into, what did you feel? And just name it. So not the story, because what we normally do is we go into the story. I'm angry at him because he did that, right? All we're doing is putting a one word, because what it's doing is helping regulate our brain. I feel, and then put a word to it. And then you can feel into that. Okay, just keep saying it. I feel. This is what I'm noticing. I feel anger. Okay, anger. Because most of us really, it's like just this pot of emotion. We have a really hard time like breaking all the little bits out to be able to see, well, what is actually going on? So fear, perhaps, anger, vulnerability,
Lust.
wanting lust. Yes, thank you. So you can use this. We did this rather quickly right now, but we can talk about it more in the Q&A if you want. Just throughout your day, just one word, name what's happening. And when I mean name, I mean just a word, the emotion, the sense. And it seems like it would be, well, I'm focusing on the negative. That's not going to be helpful. But it works in the other way. The more that our brain can recognize it, the less it gets triggered, because it sees it's not dangerous. Because so often our experience of fear, our experience of anger, especially in relationships, feels unbelievably dangerous. And we come back to the fight, flight, or freeze. It triggers immediately our brain's desire to protect us. And most of the time, or a lot of the time in relationship, when we've been, we need to stay curious. Going into our flight, fight, or freeze is completely unhelpful for us. Going into thinking that they're a tiger, like our unconscious mind, right, goes into thinking they're a tiger. So naming it to tame it, we're really naming the uncomfortable emotions so that we can stay present, so that we can then go into our curiosity and see, is this actually mine or is it actually theirs? Like this morning, it was really easy for me to think it was his, but actually it was mine, right? I was not being clear. Does that make sense? Anyways, it's been really, really helpful for me, and it'd be fun to see if that's something that could be helpful for you also. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So what I'd like to share about now is another way that we can work with love and fear. And I call this mindful sex. It could be mindful relationship. It could be mindful awareness. Because what we know is that a lot of us, because we can so easily get triggered because we're human, right? Again, it's not personal. This is what our bodies do to protect us. That perhaps when you're starting to get close to somebody, you run the other direction because of your attachment style, or you're too clingy because of you want too much. And these things can actually go into our intimacy also. I was part of an article maybe 15 years ago around mindfulness and sex and pleasure. And I'd like to give you some tips to how you can stay mindful during sex or during intimacy with your partner. And then we can try and feel into it. So to be able to be more in touch with yourself, of course, you're going to be able to be more in touch with your partner. So the number one thing you can do is start focusing on your breath. Now, this can be in intimacy, the sexual intimacy, or in a conversation. Start becoming aware of your breath. Because when you start becoming aware of your breath, you end up more grounded in your body. Because so often we're jumping out of our body, into our fear or into whatever's showing up. So focus on our breath. So you can do that right now. Just take a few breaths. So focusing on your breath. And then start to engage in your senses. So the tactile, physical sensations, which in a conversation, you can start to feel a warmth, perhaps in your fingers or toes. Or if you're in your sexual intimacy, you can really start to notice the tingling in your toes or the tingling in your legs. So you're bringing yourself back to your body through focus of breath, through noticing sensations, which often can be really easy in the beginning of a relationship, unless we're really nervous, which is often common also, or even in a longer relationship. I mean, people that have been together for 30 years. These are super, super helpful. And giving yourself a bit of time to get into the mood. So as you start to become intimate, go back again, focus on the breath, engaging in your senses, giving yourself the time and being kind to yourself. It's okay. That's all right. Allowing them to touch you. You're kicking out tons of oxytocin, calming your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that runs through our whole body, calming our nervous system down. Another thing that could be helpful is to build a little bubble. Like you can imagine that you put you and your partner into a bubble together, a safe, secure bubble where nothing can hurt you, where it's completely safe and it's all based on senses, breath, and the present moment. And then if you're noticing your thoughts coming and going, so the reason I'm talking about this is that I have a tendency to be a really up and go, and I'm like, okay, this was great, let's do fast sex, And my husband's like forever. So I find it really helpful to keep bringing myself back and then practice letting go of thoughts that come up, right? It's really easy. A thought comes up and we get distracted by it. But if we know that it's just transient, the thought comes in, the thought goes, it's not dangerous. So the basis of this is really creating safety within yourself, because we can't be safe with someone else until we're safe with ourselves. So it's a practice that we can do, not just in the sexual act or not just in intimacy in conversations, but as a daily practice for ourselves in daily life. So close your eyes for just one moment and focus on your breath. Start to notice the breath coming in and out, expanding, contracting. Start noticing perhaps the sensations of where you're sitting, your butt on the chair. So just sensations. So that means the feelings in your body that aren't emotion, more like the tactile sense. Perhaps wind on your skin. And it includes hearing, so like birds in the background. Really becoming aware of your senses, tuning into the senses. And just allowing yourself time to get there. And as thoughts show up, let them come and go. Let them be in the peripheral, like noise out on the road, but you're focused right here, right now. And then coming back, just this moment, opening your eyes. So that was a very quick practice, but a practice that you can do in daily life that can make a huge difference in all your relationships, whatever kind of relationships they are, but especially in your romantic relationships. And to know that, it's a practice. Our brain is malleable. It is flexible. It can grow. We can create new neural connections in our brain. So if you feel like this is really hard, that's okay. That's normal. It's not a muscle that you've trained. It's absolutely like going to the gym. It's a muscle that you can train up. And with everything we're talking about today, everything is workable, but we have to put in effort. But we get so much more back from it. Okay, Martina?
Yes, and
Anything-
effort is really to come back to yourself and just be present, like really being there in connection with your partner and with yourself, and having like the equal amount of attention on yourself and the partner, not more or less. It's more like we have to be both there. And what I see a lot of things, like people want to like really melt, but we also like we can melt and we can come back as two separate selves. And this is really valid information to have, to know, and have the capacity to melt and come back. Because we don't want to be in here because it creates so much stress. We need to come here, have sex, really meet, and then be two separate adults. And we are trying to make a toolbox. We just listed up of things we've been talking about here. So it's about feeling and dealing. And this is what we've been talking about the whole time. And there is a lot of things you can do in therapy. If you don't have the capacity to do all these exercises yourself, try to do some therapy around it. It's really worth it. I've done years of therapy and it really helped me to be able to relate in this new relationship and seeing my triggers and noticing the dissociation, just coming back to myself and being able to meet the other person, not reacting. It's like coming back to the adult, not going to the angry child who wants to, like, I want to have you now or something. It's like, yeah, interesting to see these tendencies, and then coming back to myself and like being the adult, being the woman, and being responsible for my triggers and my emotions, and just meeting the other person as another adult. And the mindfulness, there is so much to do. And a lot, like a good tip is also like when you really get triggered in a relationship, go to the forest and think about it and come back to yourself before you start acting out. But we just want to encourage you to just do the work. Emotions are amazing. They're not dangerous. They are our compass. And just to expand the capacity to feel is so yummy. And you can even get out, like expand your life force energy, because it's like when I think about depression, there's this lot of compression of emotions. Like if we want to live fully, we have to be able to have a high capacity to feel and deal, to feel emotion, but also regulating emotion. Mindfulness, amazing, but we also need to develop the self-love. And we need to be responsible for our own wounds. So we're just going to end. So when we are checking out and we are taking down the recording. So thank you everyone who's watching us streamed or on YouTube. And we're going to go back to the group now. And we're going to talk about what is your take home message from today. So just give us a second to close down.